Hello and welcome to the THC Show. I am your host Neil Magnuson, and this is the show where we talk about THC, that cannabinoid that's found in the cannabis plant that is such a huge topic of discussion. But really what we talk about is truth, hope, and change around THC and around the cannabis plant. On the show today we'll have 8 out of 10 Glenn from CannaMatch.ca join us for the 420 session. Jerry Martin might make it, we're not sure yet, he's going to try. Hopefully he will get here. We're going to have Darren Tarry come on and talk a little bit about what's going on with him. He's got a case before the courts, and Darren's been quite an activist for a long time and on the cutting edge and the leading edge of trying to get some sanity into our drug laws and in the cannabis prohibition side of things, or cannabis legalization side of things, depending on how you want to look at that. You know, the show has been, for the last year, focused on our pursuit of a low barrier access community cannabis store. That's what we had a year ago, opened in good faith based on a city motion to allow for low barrier access to cannabis because of a program we'd been running for 3.5 years at that time. But it's been a year since that happened, and the focus of the show for that year has been on our pursuit of this license from Health Canada to be able to continue the work that we're doing here on the downtown east side in providing low-cost and no-cost cannabis to people to help get them off of opioids and rescue them from addiction and from the poison drug supply. Speaking of drugs, you know, that's what this is all about. It's about drugs, you know. And what are drugs? We had Cannabis Day just this past Tuesday. Here in Vancouver, I thought it was a pretty good success. We had over 20 vendors that set up. We had a really good stage set up. A lot of good musicians during the day, some good speeches during the day. And it was really a reclaiming of the day for us as activists and able to talk about what's not right about legalization and the whole thing. And at that event, there was a fellow from the community who demanded I give him the microphone for a minute to make a statement, and the statement he wanted to make was that cannabis is not a drug, and it's just this nice plant, and it's not a drug. Well, I had to address that because, you know, it really depends on your definition of what a drug is. Really, a drug, it's an old German word that we use, Drug, which meant dried plant. They would dry plants and use them for many different things, and so that's the word that we've adopted here, and that's what drugs are about. But really, drugs are about pretty much anything that can alter your mind or alter your mood or your feelings, or take away pain, or address you know, things or diseases or things that aren't right. And so all of those things, you know, I think are within that realm of drugs. And cannabis is something that certainly does help with you know, many medical problems. It helps with lots of different things. It does alter your mind and your thinking and how you feel, and so I think that it does qualify as a drug. And there's this huge dichotomy and hypocrisy around drugs, right? Like I say, you know, drugs are this scary word that the government uses about, oh, drugs are bad, and, you know, watch out for drugs, and there's drug dealers and drug gangs and all these bad drug things. But on the other hand, I mean, they sell you drugs all the time, government approved drugs. There's drug stores everywhere, great big signs, drugs, drugs, drugs. And so obviously there's some drugs that they demonize, and there's some drugs that they profit on and glorify and hold up as being things that will help you in your life. But the good drugs and the bad drugs, you know, there's a great quote, I forget who said it now, and that's terrible of me to forget that, but you know, there's no good or bad drugs. There's simply good or bad relationships with drugs. And when it comes to drugs, it's all about the right dose and the right time and what duration they last and all of those sorts of things. Any drug, anything that you can ingest can be fatal if ingested too much. I mean, cannabis is the one kind of exception to that, because the amount that you would have to ingest to be fatal is not attainable. But for everything else, it's attainable. Some are really easily attainable. It doesn't take hardly anything to overdose. I mean, these days the opioid supply, the supply of heroin and even cocaine and meth are tainted with the fentanyl and now carfentanil. And it takes just a tiny little bit to overdose fatally on those things. So there's all these drugs in our society, and some of them work well, and some of them are hard to work with, but they're all there for, you know, whatever reason. And because you can say there's no good or bad drugs, because whatever a drug is, like carfentanil and fentanyl, in the right circumstances, are great drugs. I mean, they're good for people. People can have good relationships with them. If people are in serious pain, suffering all kinds of different physical ailments, those are drugs that can really help with pain and things like that when used properly in the right dose and all of that sort of stuff. So we need to get our heads better wrapped around this idea of what drugs are and you know, and what we do about them, right? As a society, really, we've gotten into this huge mess because on our behalf, these people that are charged with you know, making laws and that sort of thing have decided that you know, there's some drugs that are so bad that they have to really punish people badly if they have anything to do with them. And there's other drugs that, even though they're toxic and easy to overdose on and easy to abuse, they're readily available, easily available, some through doctors' prescriptions, others right over the counter. And so there's this huge, you know, different sides of drugs. There's the drugs that, you know, you're allowed to have, and they make them available. And then there's the drugs that you're not allowed to have, and they spend a whole lot of time and effort and our money to try to make sure that people don't get these drugs. And all of that is driven mostly by greed and idealism and not by science or fact. And none of it should be happening with respect to prohibition, because prohibition has been proven to just not work at all. I mean, even if the ideals behind prohibiting are true and good, and you know, they're trying to do the right thing, they're trying to protect people from the misuse of drugs or the fatal overdose of drugs, or tainted drugs, or all these different reasons that they have for wanting to try to prohibit drugs. And so maybe if a governing body could say, you know, don't ever use these drugs, and they knew better than us, and that you really should never, nobody could ever get any use out of those drugs in any positive way. And maybe if you know, the population in general would all respect that, and nobody would go and use those drugs that the governing bodies said you shouldn't use. I mean, maybe that would be a good thing. But none of that is true. I mean, there's any of these drugs that they say are bad and you can't have them. Well, they're good, and people would like to have them for many different reasons. I mean, people can have good relationships with any of those drugs. In fact, the more powerful they are, the more medically viable they are when used properly. So really, there is no way that they could achieve those lofty goals if those were their lofty goals, which were to be to protect people from misuse and fatally overdosing on drugs, and that there were no drugs, or some drugs that were just of no value to anybody ever, and that the government could say don't use them and people would obey that. But you know that's not true at all, because like I just said, there's drugs in that category that they say you can't have at all that are of value to people, that people could get value out of, and they're not actually prohibited because they're not able to be used for any value for people. They're really prohibited because they compete with other drugs that people can have licenses on and patents on and other things like that. It's all wrapped around commerce and greed and money, and these decisions about what to prohibit and what not to prohibit are not wrapped around, you know, how can we help people and what can we do that's good for people, how can we protect people. So the whole idea behind the prohibition in the first place is completely skewed, and then the prohibiting of it itself does not achieve those goals, if those were the goals, to protect people. In fact, they do the complete opposite. That whenever you try to prohibit drugs, then you guarantee an increase in demand, for one thing. There's a whole bunch of people who aren't going to go along with that, who don't like that idea, who think the government has no business in their life telling them that, or for whatever of a variety of reasons, they're going to continue to use those drugs. And so that the attempt to prohibit increases the demand for those drugs. Any demand will meet a supply, because that's how that works. That's a natural law that you can't overturn nature's laws. So if there's a large demand of people who are willing to pay for drugs, there will be a supply provided by people who want to take advantage of the extra money they can make and make some cash, and they're willing to risk their liberty and their property and whatever else might be at risk in doing all of that. But as we have seen, that is exactly what happens, is that the demand drives the supply is there no matter what, and there's just nothing anybody can do. No governing body can eliminate that supply if there's a demand. The people doing the supply will be one step ahead or 2 or 3 steps ahead of the enforcement. They will have more guns, they'll have more money, they'll be more ruthless, and and that's been proven in Mexico, for example, where the cartels are richer than the government, and they control what happens in much of the properties that they want to control. There's just no way to enforce your way out of drug abuse or misabuse or misuse or fatal overdoses. There's just no way you can do that. You cannot enforce your way out of there. Prohibition will increase the demand. It will guarantee an unregulated, dangerous supply. It will go. The abuse and the misuse will be way more under prohibition than they would be under a regulated system that made some sense. And so what can you do then? I mean, if prohibiting it doesn't work, and there's still going to be a problem with misuse of drugs and fatal overdoses, what can you do? Well, a governing body can put regulations on things, and that's exactly what they need to do, especially if things have these potentials for overdose and death and misuse. And regulations come in many, many different forms. You can be very creative about regulations, but first and foremost and number one when it comes to regulations is simply education. That is the regulation that is required for almost all things, and that is the one that is all that is needed. And when you're going to put regulations on things, if you're a governing body, especially in a free country, but you would think anywhere where you're dealing with human beings that have individual rights, that those regulations, which are always restrictions to some degree, will be the least intrusive possible on the rights of the people involved. And that's the mandate of the governing bodies or the regulators, is to be the least intrusive possible with these regulations to achieve the actual goals of the regulations. But some things do require heavy regulations and the maximum regulations. But what are the maximum regulations? Well, the maximum regulations you would think might be like out and out prohibition. But as we've just discussed, that doesn't work. Prohibition doesn't work. It's not a way to properly achieve your goals of reducing drug misuse and fatal overdoses. The maximum regulations are the regulations that get to the point where it would be more easy for a person to go and get it from someone in the unregulated underground market than it would be to go and get it from the drugstore or the healthcare practitioner or whoever's in charge at that point of doling these things out. If the regulations make it prohibitive for people to go to these places, if for whatever reason they don't want to register, for example, they don't want to have their name associated with what's going on, or there's other barriers, those things will drive people to an underground market. So you have to remove the barriers. You have to make it so that that's the place that people will go. Because especially, and we're only talking about dangerous things here, but if those things are dangerous, having them available in an unregulated marketplace is when they really become dangerous. So, and that's what's gone on with the poison drug supply, of course. So we need to have a way that people will go and get them from proper healthcare practitioners or places where they can go, where the barriers have been removed, and they can get what they want to have for themselves or need to have for themselves or want to try for themselves or whatever it is. We are all individual beings, sovereign beings on a journey. In many cases, a journey that's involved pitfalls along the way. There's traumas that have happened to people. By the time you're an adult, there's things that have happened. I mean, most of us don't get out of childhood. We don't even get out of birth without trauma. In fact, the whole birth experience is extremely traumatizing, and then growing up is extremely traumatizing. You're a tiny little person that can't accomplish much, and people are telling you what to do, and you can't live without them, and you rely on them for your food and your shelter and everything else, and then you grow up and from there. But we're all people that have needs, and like I say, by the time you're an adult, for sure, you've gone through childbirth, you've gone through childhood, you've gone through the teenage years, and that's stressful for everybody. And probably you had an accident or two, probably you've broken a bone or something, or maybe you're born with something not right to begin with. But almost everybody has issues that they want to deal with, and we're on this journey of trying to figure out how to deal with our issues, and that's what people do. So anyway, that's what drugs are all about, is people trying to deal with their issues, people trying to have an adventure, people wanting to experiment, people just wanting to do what they're told they can't do, people wanting to do things that are somewhat mysterious, that are outside of the normal comfort area. And that's a completely natural response for human beings and other animals on this planet. It's just what drives us and what we're wanting to do. So the whole idea that these public servants or other dictators and kings and queens or whoever is in charge of people has decided that, well, you can have these drugs and you can't have these drugs, and we're going to spend a lot of money, your money, on making sure you don't do these drugs. And if we catch you with these drugs, we're going to hurt you real bad. We're going to hurt you a lot worse than the drugs would ever hurt you, just to prove to you that you should never had nothing to do with those drugs. And that's the model that they've been using, this harm maximization penalty prohibition model. And that's what's been causing so much trouble here. And I see that in the States, Judge Clarence Thomas, the most conservative judge on the bench there, has come out and said that, the situation in America is very hypocritical. And there just isn't the necessity of having these laws against cannabis anymore. They don't make sense. There's 36 states in the United States that have laws within the states allowing for access to cannabis for medical purposes, and there's another 18 states that allow for just anybody that's an adult to access cannabis. Although they're doing it through this legalization scheme that allows for, monopolization and high-priced licenses and high-priced cannabis and other regulations, but still it's available. There's stores you can walk into and get that. And so the whole federal prohibition on cannabis, where it's a Schedule I drug having no medical value, which is absolutely ludicrous. The whole thing is ludicrous as can be. But they've got cannabis as a Schedule I drug, and so Judge Clarence Thomas has come out and said that there's really no need for this. It really is hypocritical. The government's position is unattainable or untenable at this point. And so we'll see what happens with all of that. There's another big story in the States right now where Sha'Carri Richardson, one of the best sprinters that made the Olympic team, has been banned for testing positive. I'm not sure why that happened, but it has highlighted just how ludicrous and ridiculous the whole thing is. She's from Oregon, a state that has recreational cannabis available for people. Cannabis is everywhere when you go there. She had just lost her mother, which was a very traumatizing experience for her that she was trying to go through. She was, had made the Olympic team, a lot of pressure on her for that. And so for some reason she used cannabis, even though I'm sure she was probably aware there was a test coming and maybe she'd test positive. So I don't know what to think about that. I heard some commentary last night about, she made her own bed. She has to lie in it. She should have known better. She let down a whole bunch of people. And then there's the whole debate about whether or not cannabis is actually a performance-enhancing drug anyway. 419. I have so much more to say, and now I don't have time to say it. But, Ross Rebegliati recently came out and said, well, sure, it helps people. And so in that sense, it's probably performance-enhancing. And I know the NFL has decided that they're not testing anybody for marijuana, and it's not performance enhancing. And I say that it is. I say that it helps people. I think that's why people use it. It helps people with stress. It helps people with pain. It helps with a lot of different things. But performance enhancement is what athletes are all about. I mean, that's what they do. Every choice that they make is, how is this going to enhance my performance? Everything they ingest, the protein powders and the vitamins, and their whole weightlifting and exercise regime, how much sleep they get, how they sleep, the music they listen to. All of these things are, by design, performance enhancing. And the reason that they don't want steroids as performance enhancers is because those things are dangerous. They have long-term health effects. They really screw people up, up physically when used. And so we certainly don't want athletes to be promoting the use of these things to wannabe athletes who would then go out and procure the stuff that's going to really harm a lot of people. And you can't have that going on. But cannabis doesn't hurt anybody. Cannabis helps people. And there's no reason why an athlete shouldn't be able to use a herbal supplement of their endocannabinoid system to help them with all the things that cannabis helps them with. And so that debate is raging, and we're glad to see that. And maybe we'll get some sanity at some point about what drug policies governments should have and how we handle things, and maybe we can do all that. In any case, it's now 4:20, and that brings us to the 4:20 session. And as always, we have Glenn Wells join us, 8 out of 10 Glenn. CannaMatch.ca.
Yeah.
Write that one down.
For the app to get reviewed.
I see.
Yeah, but it's in there. Google just takes their time.
I'm turning my phone down.
Are you?
So when my son calls...
That was strange for Ross to say that because he got his gold medal back because they said it wasn't performance enhancing. And now he's done a 360.
I think we all need to tell the truth.
Yeah.
That's what needs to happen.
Yeah.
And for me, I played hockey and I smoked cannabis, and it absolutely enhanced how I felt about playing hockey.
Yeah.
Maybe it's like the Family Guy episode. Did you see that one?
No.
Lois and Peter smoked some weed.
Yeah.
They're hippies, basically.
Oh, yeah.
Way back in the 60s now, when they had just met or something. And they're a singing duo, and they smoke some weed before they go on stage.
Yeah.
And from their perspective, it's all flowers and beauty, and the music is
hippie
great.
Things, yeah.
And then they show from the audience perspective, well, they're completely discombobulated, and the music sucks, and they have no. And I don't think that's true at all. I don't think that I was out there flopping around, not doing a good job of playing hockey when I was smoking weed and playing hockey.
Yeah.
I think that it was a
focusing
focusing tool.
hockey.
I'd smoke it after too.
Yeah.
But if I smoked the right amount of cannabis before playing hockey, I think I was focused. I was motivated, and I loved playing the game. I just got right into playing the game. And I know other athletes, and it's an individual thing.
It is.
Who can say?
Yeah.
Like I say, the wrong dose, and I wasn't I wasn't able to be performing the way that I would like to. Mm-hmm. And some people, it wouldn't help them at all.
No.
And some people, it probably helps them greatly.
Yeah.
And whatever it is, you find your path,
Yeah.
So.
Anyways, what are you smoking today?
Well, I think we got something new from the Canada Cannabis Center.
Yeah, I got some Rockstar
this is
here.
God Bud I rolled up earlier.
There we go. And you know what? They have a free draw.
Well, we should say that the Canada Cannabis Center is an online place where you can procure cannabis.
Yep.
It's a special arrangement that they have there. You have to be careful about reading the fine print and everything, and the shipping and all the rest of that. And so what they have now got going is a contest.
Yes. Well, it's a giveaway, actually. It's a giveaway. Right?
So we're going to flash a number at you.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to put it in the comments. It's all ready to go.
It's ready to go, but you haven't done it yet.
Huh?
You haven't done it yet.
Oh, yeah.
Don't do it
I
yet.
haven't done it yet, yeah.
And I'll show it on screen as well.
Yeah, you've got it right there.
And is it the first person?
Okay, it's the first person who uses that code.
It's God Bud.
Right? Okay, so basically, you're going to go in there, you're going to complete your order, make your order, complete your order, and then at the end of your order, it's going to ask you for a code. If you're the first person using this code, your shipping charge will go to 0.
And that's a big thing.
That's a big thing.
That's a big thing.
Yes, that's a big thing.
So are we ready to do this?
Sure,
are you guys ready to do this?
And I will do it in here too.
Okay, so make note of this code and be the first one, and you'll get. Here
we go. It's up.
There you go.
All right. This week's code is ABC in lowercase 202100701, and then next week you'll do it again with a different code. So all you got to do, once again, is go in there, make your order, complete your order, then it'll ask you for a code. If you're the first person to use this code, your shipping charge will turn to a big fat 0.
Yep.
All right?
All right.
And we thank Canada's Cannabis
I
Center
do.
for that.
I thank them for their donation to the Cannabis
CSP
Substitution Program.
Yeah.
And for the bud that they send me every week as well. This is really good to try new bud. This is God Bud.
Yeah.
Very tasty.
Oh, and I got the Rockstar, and this really tasty when I was chopping it. It was very nice. And then
I would tell you the truth too, by the way. If I didn't think it was tasty, I wouldn't say so.
We would say so, because you don't want to tell people it was good and it wasn't. And then I won a pipe recently.
Very cool.
So this is a free win, and it was just for contributing to pages on Facebook. This is a Broski Slug Cycler, and it's worth about $900 to $1,150. Wow. And it's pretty nice. I never knew that what I'd won until my friend started telling me how much it was worth. I thought I just won a nice.
So this is a snail.
Yeah, it's like from Turbo, the movie. The slug,
it's the slug.
Yeah, it's the slug. Yeah,
which is kind of like a snail, anyway.
Yeah, kind of like it. Just don't have the hard shell.
I don't have the home. They don't carry the home.
They don't carry the home.
So you got to kiss the slug, which is really cool, probably.
Oh, there's a little hole. You just Just do your dab. Yeah.
And you realize while you're doing that, the slug's looking up your nostrils.
Yes, yeah, and well, you're being stared at.
You are. It's time to stare at the people at home there.
Yeah, let them stare at the people. We'll smoke some more doobies.
There you go.
Yeah.
So CannaMatch.ca, what's going on? Your
we're
app is not approved yet, but...
No, the app is all done, and we have to send it to Google, and then Google will review it, and then they will send us an email saying it's active. And I'm figuring that's
But in the meantime, and people can go to the website.
Oh, yeah, check us out. We're over 4,000 members already, so I think 4,300 now we're into, so...
Nice. Going for 7,200 after the 4,200.
After the app, I want 10,000.
You got to pass 7,200 to get there.
Yeah.
And of course, that's
7,100. Yeah.
7,100.
Yes.
What do I know?
I knew you were going there. That's why I just went with 7100. Oh, wow.
Here's something. I've changed my drink.
You changed your drink.
Changed my drink for years and years.
So now you're drinking oil-based water because it's aloe. Isn't aloe an oil?
I don't know, but it's good for you.
It's good for you. Okay.
Because I've been drinking. It was a Minute Maid mango punch frozen concentrate, and then I would add some Sunripe mango tangerine with it. Oh. And that's what I like to drink. That was
sugary,
the taste
right?
I like. It's very sugary.
Yes.
And I've been trying to cut down on the amount of sugar intake. And so some young lady, waltzed in here one day and she had a bottle of this and she insisted that I try it. And instantly I thought, wow, that tastes really good.
Yeah.
And so I told my son about it and he says I was falling for some scam, that it's been debunked, that it's not good for you at all.
Yeah,
But we went on DuckDuckGo.
Okay.
And looked it up and stuff. It is good for you.
Even somebody says it's yucky.
To me, it tastes like white grapes. It tastes like white grapes, and it tastes really refreshing.
Wow,
it's really
good.
For me, it fits my taste.
I think I'm going to try the new Propel water. It's made by Gatorade. It doesn't have all the sugar in it, but it has electrolytes in the water.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. So
and Gatorade has that, right?
Yeah, Gatorade is putting that out, so it's not colored like this stuff, right? It's not the blue, it's just water, but it's got electrolytes in it. So it's supposed to be pretty good for you.
So I think that'll be good. If I can switch from that sugary drink that I've been drinking for years and years every day to something that is not, and maybe there's sugar in there. I don't know. Look at it.
Well, aloe makes you healthy, right?
It's what it says.
Yeah.
That's what it says online when you look it up. The National Institute of Health says it's good. It's good for your livers. It's full of nutrients, antioxidants, and things. And so,
Mary Jane says yes. Duck, duck, go good.
I think she's the one who tried to correct me.
No, that's Thomas. It's a guy. It's Hit It Hot Thomas.
Oh, he's the one who says that?
Yes, duck, duck, go.
I know Thomas.
Good. Yes.
Good to see you, Thomas.
And I had some Fisher, Pisher, approached me last night.
I see.
Yeah, did you see the post? They told me that they live in London, Canada. The state of London, Canada. Yeah. And I go, oh, well, you're a Fisher. Oh, no, I'm not. I can tell. Well, how can you tell? Because you don't even know what we have in Canada. I didn't even give them the answer, right? Oh, I made a mistake. Well, don't you think these people can use Google and find out where London, Ontario, London, Ontario, Canada is?
Google will have to pay me now if they want me to say their name.
Really?
So on another sort of similar note, trying to deal with health issues as I get older here, and it's more of a struggle uphill for that than it was when I was young, for sure. And, I was having headaches and trying to deal with that. I've been now for, I think it's over a month, using mushrooms every 3 or 4 days. I'll do like a half a gram or something.
Oh, that's good.
I actually get quite high off it's the white wizards work well for the headache side of things. I tried it, 3 or 4 times when I felt a headache coming on, and it took it away. And unlike the Texas penis envies, I don't feel really tired in the morning after I use it. I've been using it like late at night in conjunction with sleep.
Yeah.
And so now I don't feel like I'm on the verge of a headache ever. I don't. It's quite a bit different.
Ivory albino last night, and I did wake up this morning feeling much lighter.
Yeah.
Right, you're right. So that was, I kind of understand what you're doing,
But it seems to be working. That's why I'm just trying to report on what's going on.
It was so hard. Sometimes when you get in that mood, you get down and you don't want to do mushrooms because it's going to just increase that mood. But it's really hard to get yourself to the point to do it so you can get out of the mood.
I'm really looking forward to it now.
Yeah.
And I know I've gone a couple of days without. Well, I did 0.62 last night.
Okay, I did 1.5.
Yeah, that's more microdosing.
Yeah, and that's not.
Oh, you did 1.5?
1.5.
Oh, that's a gram and a half.
Yes, it is.
That's not microdosing at all.
No, I macrodose,
That's
but I
not
only do that
microdosing
once or every couple of months.
And 0.62 is not microdosing either.
No, that's just over half a gram.
It is.
Yes.
And
I just had a little bit of trails. I didn't have no hallucinations or anything because I have a good tolerance, but that just seems to be a good thing for me.
Yeah, the penis envies at a half a gram, I was seeing lots of things.
Yeah, I hear that those are one of the strongest ones.
They are.
Yeah,
they
this
sure.
ivory albino is not usually available in Canada, and it's supposed to be like the second strongest. So it was pretty good. I thought I saw my pillow move once or twice last night, but I don't know. Maybe I just moved my head too fast.
For me, it's a quite an overwhelming feeling. Like I'm feeling quite high. I probably
yeah, a little wobbly.
Yeah, a little wobbly. Like I say, I'm doing it in conjunction with sleep. So I do it at night, and then I go to bed, and I'm very aware for a few hours that I've got this going on. But it's okay. I kind of like it. I'm looking forward to it each time, and especially because I'm feeling more awake and alert early in the mornings when I get up, and I'm not feeling like I'm on the verge of a headache, even if I'm smoking a fair bit of weed.
That's good.
So that's all really good.
Yeah. Wow.
And mushrooms are going to be, by the look of it, they're going to be accepted more, in the mainstream.
Yeah, there's even a mushroom store here in Vancouver where you can go buy
some
mushrooms now, right?
Yeah, lots of jurisdictions are allowing it.
Yeah. So they're working in the same gray area as those stores used to work before the legalization.
And
right?
there again, the therapeutic value of mushrooms is becoming, more and more understood. There's a lot more studies looking into it. For sure, it's helping people. It can help people with a lot of different things, from PTSD to addiction to depression, and those sorts of things. And really, not much downside.
Yeah,
that's the thing. Yeah, is that, and that's the thing.
Make sure you eat before you do mushrooms.
This is how crazy this is. We live in a world where commercial tobacco products are the number one reason for people being hospitalized in Canada. They kill, on record, 4 or 5 million human beings every 12 months globally.
Yeah.
Everybody's trying to quit.
Yeah.
There's tons of pictures of terrible things on the packages, and they
Yeah.
write horrible things. But those things are available everywhere.
And they're
you can get them in grocery stores, in gas stations. They're all over the place.
Yep.
Same with alcohol.
Like
Probably commercial tobacco. Well, it doesn't kill everybody. Some people say it fends off a cold. Other people say it helps them when they're depressed because whatever.
It helped my mom not have COVID. Because she's been smoking 6
People
years.
have been smoking, so much that they smoke with all the good things that they do. So they associate it with sex and a good meal and all these things. Because after all those things, they smoke a cigarette. So those things become connected. It's all part of the addiction thing.
Yeah.
And they're addictive as hell, and we know that. And the tobacco companies love that. They love the fact that people talk about it being addictive and talk about it being really hard to quit. Because there's a lot of psychological in that, where people they think it's hard to quit, so therefore it is hard to quit. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
and then the tobacco companies don't want you quitting, so they're quite happy
that
people think that it's really addictive. But here we have this substance that is really addictive, that is killing people at an alarming rate, very unhealthy. With if it doesn't kill you, there's all these other issues. Like I say, the number one reason for hospitalizations in Canada is because of pulmonary and breathing things, caused by cigarettes. So we have this really obviously harmful thing that's available in drugstores and grocery stores and gas stations. And it used to be vending machines.
Oh, wow. Oh, remember those? Yeah, we used to put all the coins in, and you pull the handle, and then a pack of smokes would come out for your mom or dad.
I know, and anybody could buy those.
Yeah.
I used those
machines. As long
machines.
as you had the money.
Really easy to steal cigarettes from me when I was a kid. I started smoking when I was 10 years old. It was the cool thing to do in East Vancouver, where I grew up. You could steal them from the local department grocery store, the big grocery stores.
Yeah.
They would have them piled up behind the cashier. The cashier is here processing people through, and behind her is a big stack of cigarettes. And so when you're coming through the other aisle, you just reach over your shoulder and grab a couple packs.
Now, there is no statute of limitations in Canada, right?
I stole cigarettes when I was a kid, 10 years old.
I did a dine a dash once in Mississauga when I was a kid living on the streets.
Right.
And I went back 25 years, 30 years later, and the same owner was sitting behind the till in a little chair, and I asked him if he was the same person who owned the store, and he said, yeah, and I paid the man. Wow. And he said, this is amazing. He says, not too many people do it. I said, I'm sorry, I was very, very hungry, and I said, I didn't have any money, but here I am today, making it right. And he was amazed, right? Because I was amazed that it was still the same owners of the Applewood restaurant in Mississauga, right?
That's a very cool story.
Yeah, it was really good. And I told myself when I got up from the table that I would only pay the owner. I already had thought about paying, right, because I was there, but only the owner would be the one who rightfully gets the money, because back then that $12 was worth a lot of money, and now I gave him $50, right? So, because I figured that would be today's rate of the food that I ate.
Well, that must have made you feel pretty good, too.
Oh, it was good. It was good, yeah. It was nice to be able to do something and have the opportunity to do that, right?
I've done some things like that in my life as well. I stole a lot of stuff when I was growing up as a kid. I certainly never went back to all the IGAs and gave them money for the cigarettes that I took or anything like that. But those are really good things to do for yourself. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's good for the other person too. I mean, an owner has that happen to them. Makes their day as well. They have a little more faith restored in humanity or something. Yeah. But it's a good thing to do for yourself as an individual too. Yeah. Don't beat yourself up for anything. Forgive yourself. Forgive other people. And go around trying to make things right, or
you just never know who's going to pop up in your life and say, "Hey, I'm sorry for what happened," and here's an example or an apology or the thing back or whatever. You just never know, right?
You never know. No. So anyway, the point is that there's alcohol and there's cigarettes and there's all these other things that people can hurt themselves with. I mean, you walk into a drugstore and there's so many things that you can just buy over the counter that you can misuse to the point of fatality. Mm-hmm. And all these things are available, yet they're spending all of this effort and all of this money and making it so hard for people to
get healthy.
To get healthy on something that really never hurts anybody. Nope. If they really did care about people, there'd be a big campaign by them. They'd probably ban cigarettes, commercial tobacco, no more. You can't put all those additives in it in any case, or you have to have a healthy product. You have to screen it for microbes. Yeah. Have to make sure that you're not doing anything to that product and adulterating it in any way that's harmful for people. But that's obviously not their concern. Their concern is always monetary, and they're not working for us. They're working for some other powers. We're going to find out a little bit about that coming right up. Glenn, I appreciate you coming on. Looks like Jerry's not going to make it today. He's got some issues he's dealing with. Yeah. And we didn't know for sure if he was going to be here. So he'll have a lot to say when he comes on next week. Because he wasn't here last week either. We'll be able to catch up with him and what he's doing in his pursuit of freedom of thought, with his Freedom of Thought project. Jerry Martin is the owner of this dispensary back when it was operational. No longer, because he got caught up in legalization, where instead of being brought into the mainstream and allowed to continue to serve his community the way that he'd been doing for 4 years, he was told to cease and desist.
Yeah. And he's a great man. Right, we'll see you
next week. I'm going to continue to just talk a little bit about Jerry, and then I'm going to bring my guest on. And not just Jerry, but this whole thing with the legalization and what that did to the medical users. Legalization in Canada here has been an attempted takeover of the cannabis production and distribution throughout Canada for recreational purposes, which the government says is non-medical. And they say that on purpose. They don't want to be involved in anything to do with the medical value of cannabis. They still dispute that there is, even though there's thousands of doctors in Canada that have prescribed cannabis as a medicine for tens of thousands of people. There's 400,000 people or some 420,000 people that have been given permission by their doctors to use cannabis for, in many cases, very serious illnesses. In many cases, people have gotten right off of the pharmaceutical meds and are using cannabis as their medicine. And so medical cannabis is an absolute wonderful thing that needs to be available to everybody. And the government has decided that they're going to legalize cannabis, but not medical cannabis. So if you want medical cannabis, then you might be able to get a doctor to sign for you to be able to have it grown for you or to grow for yourself or to access it online through licensed producers of cannabis. But there's no store for you to walk into. There's no easy way for you to get it. Even if you get a doctor to prescribe it for you, You still don't get it easily at all. Any other really like the strongest opioids and other prescriptions that people can obtain through doctors' prescriptions, you can get that within minutes of walking out of your doctor's office. But for people even with serious illnesses and serious need, they don't get cannabis right away if they get their doctor to approve it at all, which is very unlikely, but it does happen, has happened. As I said, there's thousands of doctors that have done that. Then it's a long process before they can actually access cannabis. And so these medical storefronts that popped up to supply that need back in the day, starting here in Vancouver and in Victoria with the Compassion Club, and then moving to other models and other dispensaries, eventually ending up with over 150 dispensaries here in Vancouver and numerous other ones. And there was one in Saskatchewan that started, and then a couple more popped up. And that one in Saskatchewan was operated by Jerry Martin. And we've been talking about Jerry's case for quite a while. And I know I told you that Jerry wasn't going to be here and we'd catch up with him next week. But he's here. He just walked in the door. And so we'll have Jerry come on and talk to us about these things. But Jerry was running his dispensary in a small town in Saskatchewan for 4 years, had over 1,000 members. And then the government tells him to cease and desist due to legalization. And of course, you can't do that. I mean, you can't do that. A person couldn't do that. I mean, imagine you're an illegal dispensary to begin with. So you've opened illegally. You don't have permission. In fact, you're in violation of Canada's criminal code. And you're operating your dispensary despite that. And you're helping 1,000 people who are using it for medical purposes. And Jerry was very strict about how he operated his dispensary. He wanted to be accepted into the mainstream when legalization happened. He did not want to run afoul of the law. He was using strict protocols as designed here in Vancouver by Philippe Lucas and Riel Kapler for the Compassion Club. And everybody had to have a doctor on board confirming diagnosis. And yet he was told to stop helping these people. Well, if you're a dispensary owner operating an illegal dispensary and you're told to stop because of legalization, and if you don't stop, you're going to be illegal, yeah, nothing's changed. You're still just an illegal dispensary. The only thing that would change if you stopped is you'd have 1,000 people not very happy, in fact, desperate and like dead in some cases. And so Jerry did what any dispensary, any human being would do, which was to defy that order and to continue on and hope that he could negotiate behind the scenes and that legalization could mean that he could operate his store and continue to help people. But instead he was arrested, he had his properties seized, he was dragged through the court system, over 40 different appearances over the course of 4.5 years, still not done. There'll be another court hearing in September to hear final arguments and then a decision sometime after that. But Jerry's been on this terribly emotional roller coaster ride for 4+ years, 4.5 years now, and hasn't been idle. As I mentioned right off the top, he's been involved in the Freedom of Thought Project and trying to get people the ability, the permission to be able to use plants to enhance your consciousness or go on a journey with your consciousness or whatever you might want to do. Did you know you're not allowed to do that? You know that the government says, no, you can't do that, and that you can dull your senses with alcohol, kill yourself with cigarettes, but we can't have you doing any of those mushrooms or, that the LSD stuff or, DMT or the other components in nature that allow us to have insights into nature. You can't do any of that. You're not allowed to do that. Can you imagine that? You're not allowed to think along those lines. You're not allowed to take something that would alter your thoughts because for some reason your government thinks that might be dangerous, I guess, but I don't think they think it's dangerous for you. I think they think it's dangerous for them. And so Jerry's working on that, and somebody's got to. There's a lot of people working on that. It is the new frontier of freedom, and cannabis certainly is in there as well. If you think about it, it's about altering your consciousness, the THC that allows you for some euphoria, a different way to look at sunsets and music and all those things. And that's what the government thinks they can interfere with, is your ability to change your feelings and change your thoughts to things that make you feel better or think better or learn things and all that kind of stuff. So it's really crazy that we've gotten to this point in history where human beings are controlled along those lines. And it's quite a bit past due and certainly on the brink of being too far overdue that we turn that around and we recognize that individuals are free people, that governments do not have the right to bully and to dictate to with respect to what we consume, what we think about, and how we feel. So I'm going to bring Jerry onto the show now, and we'll update you a little bit on what's going on with that. Good day, sir.
Hey.
You doing all right?
Okay.
You okay?
Yeah.
That's good. Nothing new on the court case side, just waiting for September, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So what's new on the Freedom of Thought Project side?
Going slow. I owe another $24,000.
You sunk a bunch of money into that.
Oh yeah, it's expensive, man. So I got to pay that off before we can.
You gonna get your money back one day, or is it just gonna be worth it in what you might achieve?
Well, I would hope to get my money back.
So maybe both of those things. Eh? The plan is that one
I'm not
day...
very good at that, though.
Well, you're good at getting it in the first place,
I'm
but
good at
you
getting
have
it.
a knack for losing it at some point.
I tend to give it all away to people and causes.
Well, and then what you don't give away, the government steals off you.
Yeah.
So, as I mentioned, when they shut down your dispensary, they actually also seized your properties. What did they get?
House, the shop, another property, 3 vehicles, all my money, stocks, all kinds of things. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Even my change.
And you haven't gotten any of that back to date.
No, they refused to give anything back. So.
And you still owed money on the cars.
Yeah, I still owe a lot of money on those. Yeah, and it keeps getting more and more with the interest and that.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, what a case, Jerry. There's a book, in what's going on with you,
Yeah.
what this has been all about. It's just insanity. In future, I hope reason happens to win out in the end. That's what I'm going for.
Yeah, me too.
I don't know if we're going to get there. Things get crazy or not more sane.
Yeah.
But if reason ever does win out in the end, I mean, future humans are going to look back on what happened, in your case in particular, but in the whole attempt to drive out first cannabis, and then they couldn't win that one, so they take cannabis over, but now they want to drive out medical cannabis.
Yeah.
It's
and
just
anybody that
insane.
supported it before.
I go crazy about it. I and probably my audience does too. I don't know if I want to continue to repeat myself over and over again, but it is just the most insane thing. People have medical needs that were being met by a natural herb that was unjustly prohibited. And so the fight for that resulted in good people risking their liberty, their property, to give sick and suffering Canadians the access that the courts had said that they deserved. And yet here we are, even with the court decisions that we've had, with the understandings that we have, with all the studies that we've had about the medical value of cannabis, here we are with a gentleman who risked all to help people, and now still faces prosecution and continuing loss and all of this when there's no victims, no damage to anybody. You not only provided medical services in the form of access to medical cannabis to 1,000 people for 4 years, but you gave back to your community like probably no one else has in the history of dispensary owners. You were keen to do that. And I heard you say something, and I want you to talk a little bit about, is that you had heard Trudeau say something about wanting to be transparent.
Yeah.
And so you decided to be transparent as best you could in what you were doing. And that included the monies that you were giving to activism, to try to change the laws, but also mostly to your community as well.
Yeah, and the banks, they're all registered as, medical marijuana dispensary. It was very clear and open about what I did the whole time.
Yeah. And until the very end, all gratefully accepted by those people that got
they had no problem at all taking that.
And now the government is twisting it to say that was somehow money laundering.
Yeah. Well, anything that you profit from drugs, if you give it away, it doesn't matter if you're helping people, it's still money laundering. Yeah.
Well, I really hope that your case is going to result in a huge exposure of just how corrupt our society is, our governments are, this law is, this thing with cannabis is just the most corrupt thing I
Yeah, we're about 8 weeks away, 9 weeks away, I guess.
Coming fast, eh?
Yeah.
I know how fast it comes because week after week this show happens. It feels like just 3 or 4 days ago we did the last show. And here we are again, and now we've done in the 90s of these things. Yeah, time flies really fast, so we are going to figure this out. But, god damn it, I mean, sorry, Aunt Barbie. I love you. I hope you're still watching. I have this wonderful aunt, religious lady, and she found out about the show, and she's a Christian, and the Christian church has been very hypocritical on cannabis for a long time.
They've been brainwashed for a long time.
They have.
Can't blame them.
There again, such an upside down thing. On the very first page of the Bible, it talks about God creating the seed-bearing herbs. And the comment from God upon his creation of these things is that they are very good and that they are for everyone.
Yeah.
Very strange, interesting statements at the very beginning of the Bible, the book that the U.S. says they're founded on.
Yeah, it's very strange that they make you swear on the Bible, but they're arresting you at the same time for what's in the Bible that you're allowed to do.
It's just incredibly hypocritical.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I swear on the Bible.
And for the Christian side of things, more and more of them are coming on. Pastor Karen Urquhart from North Vancouver is a big supporter of ours with the Cannabis Substitution Program, and a big antagonist against prohibition. And these are plants that, according to the Christians, not my grandmother, who bought into the whole devil's weed thing, and somehow my grandma lived to be 102, and when she was 101, she got quite upset because of what I was doing to try to legalize cannabis. And I said to her, Grandma, let's get out your Bible, and I'll show you on page 1. It says, in Exodus 30:23 talks about Moses and the holy anointing oil as well, and that there's 8 pounds of quanabazum according to the original Aramaic text. And quanabazum meaning stinky cane, obviously cannabis, not calamine, which is, in the translations, they either calamus or calamine, but it wasn't either of those things. That wouldn't be part of a holy anointing oil that had belladonna and other hallucinogenics and psychedelics in it. Cannabis would be in there, and that's where it was. But she wouldn't even look at the Bible. She got really agitated. I said, Grandma, God didn't make any bad plants. And she said, God did not make that plant.
Yeah, it shows you how brainwashed they are.
And I'm like, I don't think the devil made any plants, Grandma. Well, yes, he did. So, the whole devil's weed campaign with my grandmother had sold her somehow, when push came to shove on thinking about it, that no, God didn't make that plant. So, they're coming around, and they have to understand that man has really perverted things for their own greed and ability to control people. And this is the biggest example of that.
First off, religions shouldn't be controlling anything.
Should not. They can have their ideas all they want. People can have whatever ideas they want. But I'm not sure they get a tax break.
But to force it on other people isn't right.
And
to base laws around their religion instead of someone else's religion, or everybody's religion for that matter.
Speaking of religion, I failed to properly mention off the top of the show, which I was going to in this particular episode because it's so pertinent to today, that we do this show from the unceded territory of the Squamish and the Musqueam and the
cannabis.
Oh man, the brain is a funny thing sometimes. You lose it. But yeah, we're on unceded territory here, and here we have a situation where now it's clear what we've known for a long time. There was inquiries into this. We knew this. There was lots of children and people buried at these residential schools.
Or houses where my reserve was. That's where they had like 750.
Plus.
Yeah.
And so this horrible thing that's happened, and I'm really waiting to see what the response of the Catholic Church is. Like, what are they going to have to say about this?
They don't seem to care.
They don't care.
They're like the largest landholder in the world.
One of the richest organizations on the planet.
Yeah.
Hard to estimate their value because so much of what they have is considered priceless.
Yeah.
And yet they've had tax breaks all along here.
Yeah.
And in this case, I mean, come on, some accountability here. I mean, the government of Canada obviously turned a blind eye to some things. I would think that they would have to have known some of that was going on.
Oh, for sure they did. They wrote the laws.
Well, yeah, what went on privately in these schools. Like I say, I would like to think that either the government did know or they damn well should have known.
They had the RCMP enforce those, right?
Yeah, and there was lists of things. They did have records and stuff like that. I mean, I would think that whoever was in charge of each and every one of those residential schools obviously
you can't bury thousands of bodies of children and
They must have known.
And nobody not.
And I firmly suspect that they were taking orders from someone higher above.
Oh, for sure.
There's other people in the organization. So, what have they got to say about all of this? There's accountability here. I mean, it's one thing to say you're sorry, but it's another thing to be accountable. And there needs to be some accountability here by the Catholic Church and by the Canadian government. And now the whole country is grieving this. We're all mourning this. This is a loss for all of us.
There's going to be a lot more bodies found,
Oh, absolutely there is. I think the estimates from one of the main inquests looking into this was somewhere in the neighborhood of 25,000 bodies.
And I see it didn't even make the World, what's that organization there for atrocities and terrorism and all that sort of stuff. Yeah, so it didn't even make it. We know Trudeau's on there. No, he's on his own country listed.
The son of Castro.
Yeah. Oh, he so is. I seen another one today. It's not identical, man. Yeah,
I saw Margaret and Castro showing the pictures of their son, the Pierre.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's it. Pierre's over there, and they're all holding. He's all happy, eh?
Oh man, that's so insane.
You don't see Castro smiling.
The world is so insane.
I'll be holding that baby.
And the Trudeau cartel.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Well, I guess we'll just try to do our best to address it and speak to it and use the platform that we have and the voice that we have to try to address these things. My sincerest condolences to everybody that's been involved in the residential schools, and that's everybody that's Indigenous. I have many Indigenous friends here, and I know they're suffering hard. They're having a hard time dealing, and it's not going to get any better for the next little while.
Friends from Calais and they got to go through all of that. Talking,
it's not over
through all the stuff
time.
that they forgot about 40 years ago. Now they got to go through it all over again.
It's a never-ending thing. It's going to be generational, and we need to do our very best as Canadians and as the Canadian government and as the Catholic Church. Now, I'm not speaking as me of any part of that, but in doing our very best to make it as easy as we can on the survivors and to do what we can to address these things properly.
Start by giving them jobs. That would be good.
Clean communities.
So much. How about clean water?
Yeah, clean water.
It's so many atrocities have happened and are still happening here. And yet, well, maybe something will be done about it now. I think it's got to be held in the spotlight for a long time to come. At Cannabis Day, we tried to pay as much respect as we could to the issue, and I had somebody come in. Well, I guess it was just me talking at the microphone, and I said that no, it was about somebody that asked me about because we were all wearing orange shirts, a lot of us there as well, instead of our regular Cannabis Day shirts. And I said, well, this event has to speak to that, and every event has to speak to it for a long time into the future. Everything we do has to have that awareness there of what had happened and what we can do about this to make sure stuff like this never happens again in the future. And like you say, religion shouldn't have.
Fortunately, it happens every day.
Still happening. All of it.
I mean, 99% of the youth of males are Indigenous in Saskatchewan. 98% are female Indigenous. It happens every day. There's just
And you look at the numbers of people that are oppressed. They're still making lots of arrests to do with cannabis offenses and not just cannabis offenses, any offense. And you look at the discrepancy between the Indigenous people and how they're treated compared to and it's got to stop. It's absolutely got to stop. So hopefully we can do something about that. Well, I guess, is there anything to do with your Freedom of Thought project that you want to talk about, or can people get involved? How can they get involved?
Soon, I'm going to put up a fundraiser here, start fundraising for the court case. I'm just trying to figure out if we're going to do it as Mindtech as the plaintiff, or we're just trying to figure that out, or if I'm just going to do it myself. We prefer to do it as the company, but we're just on hold with the... we are talking with an MD out of Toronto, so I'm working on that deal, and as soon as we get him on board and this meeting with the lab, things will start moving forward.
And you're providing microdosing kits for people at this time?
Yeah, through Microdelics,
And that's microdelics.ca?
Yeah.
Very good. All right, Jerry?
Truck's outside, so then...
Oh, we're going to go to the truck. Don't go away right away, because I'm going to talk to my guest for a little bit. Can you stay for
I can wait for you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, wait. Thanks, Jerry. Appreciate that a lot. Good luck with it all. We'll see you next week.
Okay, thank you.
I have a guest on the show today. He's on the show because he's got a court date pending, and we want to talk about that. But Darren's been an activist for a long time in the Vancouver area. Oh, you're here already? Sorry. Come on in. You're not going to kick you off the set now. But you don't get the same introduction I was going to give you, that's all. Darren's been very active in helping us with the Cannabis Substitution Program, with helping people get access to cannabis. It goes back a long way, his activism in providing access and in creating cannabis products. And I think he's got a very personal reason for doing all that he does, and I want to delve into a little bit about that. So thanks for coming on the show, Darren. We'll get to your court case in a little bit, but tell me a bit about yourself. Where are you from?
I was born in England. I came over when I was about 3 and a half. I've been raised in British Columbia my whole life.
Right.
Yeah, I've been a Canadian citizen since. I'm actually dual.
So you went to school here?
Yeah, went to school here.
Were your parents cool? Were they weed smokers, or what were your parents?
Oh yeah, my parents are weed smokers.
So you got fairly cool parents. So
yeah.
When did you start smoking weed?
Oh, I was probably about 10 and a half, 11-ish in that area somewhere.
Started young.
Yeah.
I didn't start till I was 15, but I was smoking cigarettes when I was 10.
I did start cigarettes till I was like 13 or 14.
I see. I quit cigarettes when I was 13. One starts, one quits. That's how the world works, you know.
Yeah.
So, growing up in British Columbia, you know, you're using weed. How did you become an activist? Was it health issues, or what happened with you?
For me, mainly, I got into doing the cannabis extracts and using cannabis for medicine once I found out I had cancer years back.
So you found out you had cancer. That's what happened.
Coughing up blood, losing weight.
Did you go right away to using cannabis products?
Oh yeah. I literally went straight away.
How old were you?
Making mixed years. This is probably about 5-6 years ago now.
Maybe
a little bit longer.
In the late 30s?
Yeah, maybe a little bit longer, but yeah, in that area.
Okay. And so you right away thought extracts were probably better than just smoking the
I
flowers?
was already helping other people with issues with it, and I knew a bit about it because I was a designated grower for my mother because she used it for fibromyalgia.
So before you were diagnosed with cancer, you were already a designated grower for your mother, and you were helping other people get access. So you knew about cannabis as medicine, and then you got your diagnosis. But how did you become a designated grower and helping people get medicine before that?
Well, I was under the MMAR license. I was growing for her at her property.
So it was through your mom?
Yes.
Right.
So I was doing that. And then shortly after, a good friend of mine, Jill, brought me down to one of the 420 markets. I was just making cookies because they were really helping me. And we're down there at the 420 at the art gallery. And, you know, it was really busy and all that. And then there was a few other people that started doing a weekend market. So I started showing up for that. And after doing that for a couple of months, I was just meeting so many people. And it was always on the weekends where it was busy. So I decided to pack up my 2 suitcases and my dolly and my table and my tent. I'd get on the West Coast Express, I'd cab to West Coast Express, I'd get off the West Coast Express, walk my dolly up the hill, and I'd set up at Robson Square.
Nice.
Right? And
we were there with you at the Cannabis Substitution Program.
I wasn't there to make money, I was there to get the information out. Right? Like, the best part about it is when you see the homeless guy pushing by with the cart, and he's just all miserable. It's just like, hey, would you like something? Oh, I'm broke. Oh, here, have something. Yeah. Oh, really? And their face just changes.
And we've been carrying that on, obviously, with the Cannabis Substitution Program, but you were doing the same thing at Robson Square there for quite a while.
And that's how I actually met you guys, was a couple friends that were volunteering down at the Cannabis Substitution Program came up and told me about it and started sending cookies and donations.
Now you've been a fabulous donor over the years.
Right? Like, it's about getting the medicine out there.
Yeah.
And that's what it's always been about.
And then you started providing us, when we opened the store, with low-cost, really good quality concentrates and things like that. And so we've been working on all of that.
Well, in the cannabis industry, I've met a lot of good, top-quality, healthy product craft vendors.
Right.
And people need this medicine.
Yeah.
And people, they need that. And I have, like with our BC Bud Guys page we had, people would always say, "Oh, how much you sell weed for?" I say, "Oh, we don't really sell weed, but we could direct you to a craft vendor in your area that can help you with that." Right? Because otherwise, you're just getting shut down.
Is that website still active?
It has been. It's still more for news and all that, but I haven't really been doing much of the Facebook lately just because of my phone being down and all that, and I've lost contact with it for a while. It took me a bit to get back on. But
So you were one of the earlier supporters of the Cannabis Substitution Program. We've been going for 4.5 years now. It was a great relationship. You helped us so much, and then all of a sudden one day you had the cops arrive on your property. So tell us about that.
Yeah, under false allegations from somebody, a family member of mine that was esteemed.
Steamed or esteemed?
Esteemed or very, just lost it. She, not really bringing much up on that, but had some mental issues. Police were told that I was running a meth lab.
Did she believe that?
No.
So she was trying to make trouble for you.
But anyways, within...
So they arrived and pointed guns?
Oh yes, they arrived the next day after this complaint was made.
Right.
My wife had just left to go pick up my daughter from school, and the police were already at the school. I was in the living room. It was a rainy day. I was in the living room playing with my son Edward on the floor in my pajamas. And next thing you know, I hear over the loudspeaker with the residents of my address, please exit the building. And they gave me a timeline, otherwise they're going to gas my house.
Wow.
So I picked up my son, I walked out in the rain, and there's a big battle tank truck sitting there, and I could see all the SWAT team poking their heads around the side, and there's SWAT team around the other side of the house. I'm just walking out like, what the fuck? Next thing you know, I get to telling me to come up the side slowly. Come up the side slowly. Next you know, they'll jump out and start pointing their assault rifles at me and my son, demanding me to put my son down, or put him down, get on the ground. I'm just like, no. I pushed past him, sent him down on the bumper of the back of the truck, gave him a hug, and they literally down to the ground in cuffs.
Wow.
Like not resisting or.
Wow. So did you spend the night in jail?
Yeah, I was out within 24 hours after this. They searched my house, they raided my house for apparently firearms, all this sort of stuff, for meth lab. They found my cannabis shop that I had in the back, which I told them right up. Well, Susan is there. I'm like, what, you guys are really all this for a cannabis shop? And then I find out now they're actually there for a meth lab. But they never even looked into it, alright? So, they deported my wife, kicked her out of the country for a year because she's American. The Child Services took my children for 3 months, which is rare that I even had them back that fast. And yeah, they ran along with a bogus charge of uttering threats for about 10 months, and then they dropped it. So I went into the police station and I made a complaint. I'm like, okay, well, all this happened. Like, why aren't they being held accountable? And they had nothing to do with it. My friend, a couple friends were there, and the staff sergeant was literally pushing me out the door. Physically pushing me out the door. He didn't want to talk to me.
And they've got a bunch of your stuff that they seized at that point.
Oh yeah, they seized a bunch of equipment and all that. Okay. And literally a week.
No charges at this point?
There was all the charges were previously dropped. And after that, about a couple days later, I got a phone call that, I'm being charged under Section 12B of the Cannabis Act.
And what does that say?
That states that I'm not allowed to alter cannabis with an organic solvent. That's all.
So you're altering cannabis with an organic solvent.
Yes.
And so that's against the Cannabis Act.
Yes.
And what's the penalty for that?
It says no more than 14 years for the maximum penalty, but I found out that it's 14 years plus a day.
Well, that sounds like a little more than 14 years.
Not less a day. Well, 14 years less a day on a non-violent offense, you can get a conditional sentence. You can still be at home working, providing for your family, but plus a day, no, it's jail time.
Well, that seems rather ludicrous, don't you think? 14 years? What do you get for processing stinging nettle?
Nothing.
Can you grow stinging nettle?
Yes.
Do you need a license for that shit? That's dangerous.
What about dandelions?
The dandelions are a health product, so that's fine. You should be able to grow that. But there's some other plants out there that are fucking deadly and dangerous, and you don't even need a license to grow that shit. You can grow them all you want. In fact, of the 100 houseplants or so that people have typically in their homes, most of them are poisonous. Yet, you don't need a license for those. You can have those.
They're not edible.
But cannabis, which isn't poisonous, doesn't ever kill anybody ever, carries a 14-year sentence for altering it with an organic solvent.
Yes.
What's the justification for that? How many
which
people have been
is one of
killed?
the best medicines that's been proven.
How many
from
people have been
cannabis.
killed by altering cannabis with an organic solvent?
Nobody.
Nobody's died.
Nope.
Seriously injured?
Nope. Nope. I've had some people who
Gone
didn't
crazy?
listen. I've had some people who didn't listen, and they took a little bit too much, and they, oh my God, that ruined my day. It's like, well, you have to work your way out.
No. I'm not talking about having your day ruined
that,
or even
but
being
nope.
sick for a night. I'm talking about some
Nope.
serious health issues,
Nope.
people being injured in some serious way, going crazy for years, nothing like that. And yet our government thinks it's okay to punish people to that extreme for altering cannabis with an. What do you think they're afraid of?
Too many people getting healthy.
Not being able to sell extracts to people, I guess.
Well, not even that. I think because a lot of times with the high dose oils that you want for edibles, a lot of these stores don't even sell them.
Right, of course. And they're
They
not allowed
don't
to
even
sell
have
high dose edibles
Yeah,
at
they're
all.
not allowed to have like Rick Simpson oil or Phoenix Shears, whatever,
Yeah.
or whole plant extracts or stuff like that. They're all limited. Those are the things that raise the pH in your blood and change the alkaline in your body to fight off a lot of the stuff. Those are that's what you want
There's
for people who are trying to get off opiates.
There's a huge body of evidence to support that cannabis is medicine for people.
For Rick Simpson.
And Rick Simpson oil is.
And this is a really weird fact. Rick Simpson has already dealt with this case, but when he was dealing with it, it was just under the criminal. Now it's under the Cannabis Act.
And that's what works for so many people. There are so many stories that I've heard, and studies to back them up, of people who have had serious things solved by using large amounts of cannabis oil.
And people get off hard drinkers that have stopped drinking, and they couldn't just quit, so they had to wean down. So they'd have their couple drinks, and then they'd eat a cookie and pass out, right? Instead of drinking all night.
Yeah.
Right? So eat a cookie, slam some water, pass out, and after a while they just start getting used to wanting to go to bed early.
I had
Yeah,
uncles
so
that successfully got off of alcohol using cannabis.
Yeah.
And, way healthier, way better lives for sure, but way better people as a result of it. As we all know.
That's why I do what I do. I want to be able to give people a better quality of life.
That's why we do what we do. Eh?
At this point, it's they want to try and say that I'm a criminal and they're going to put me in jail and fine me. Like, look at Jerry. He's been helping people for years with his store, and then all of a sudden it's going legal, and bang, we're taking everything, and we destroyed his life.
Legalization, I'm not sure who it benefits, but it wasn't dispensary owners, it wasn't medical cannabis users, it wasn't the consumers of cannabis who have to pay a hefty fine up front every time they buy it. It wasn't really for any dispensary owners even, because they don't have the mechanisms to make the money they would like to be able to make, because they're bound by so much added tax and the fucking ridiculous packaging that they use and the way that they have to sell it and the way that they have to grow it and all of that stuff. So it's not, legalization wasn't really designed to benefit the very people that needed to benefit from this.
Mm-hmm.
The people that are benefiting from it seem to be former prohibitionists that are now CEOs of cannabis companies and big money interests, which have always been the ones behind prohibition in the first place. I'm sure there's a lot that switched from lobbying for prohibition to legalization because now they can make money on it.
Yeah.
So, it's crazy, man.
It's all corruption.
So your court case is coming up 15 days?
Yeah, July 22nd in Abbotsford is when my trial starts. At this point, do I fight the trial and say that you guys had a bogus, your work was unconditional and you jumped the gun? Or do I just,
So you're two weeks out and you're not sure what you're going to do yet?
I'm still deciding if I'm going to plead guilty and challenge the law.
You've got lawyers helping you on this?
Yes, I do have lawyers helping me on this.
I hear John Conroy's helping you?
Yes, he's a legal
As an
advisor.
advisor, yeah.
I got Christopher Tarapaki from Grayson and Tarapaki. He is doing my case on me for legal aid for me, which is phenomenal, very rare. You find lawyers that will actually want to fight a case on legal aid.
Yeah, John Conroy for us has been fantastic. The amount of time and effort he's put in and not charged us a penny is incredible.
Oh, he's an awesome guy.
There was a lawyer coming back, we're right courthouse is just right there from where we are. Police station's over there. And there was a lawyer coming to his car here the other day, and I asked him, you're a lawyer, yeah. So how did you do today? So I won. I said, you want to help us, and what's your issue? And I briefly told him, and I mentioned that John Conroy was helping. So John Conroy says, that's the guy that's the lawyer that legalized marijuana. He says, you got the best guy you could have. You don't need me. So the lawyers think that John legalized marijuana. I said, well, he's not quite done yet. Until we get low barrier access, we haven't quite legalized cannabis properly. Mm-hmm. And that's low barrier access not just for consumers, but for also for producers. Like, it needs to be easy for people to get into providing cannabis for people.
Or making your own extracts.
Absolutely.
Like, you go into these dispensaries and they charge through the roof for these extracts. It comes in a fancy packaging and all that. Where a lot of these people that are fighting cancer or multiple other ailments can literally just go get their cannabis, mash it up, pour alcohol. Oh, nope, you can't. You go to jail for that.
You can have alcohol.
You can't make the best.
You can have alcohol.
No, you can drink alcohol and smoke cannabis, but the second,
But you can't run the alcohol through the cannabis.
To get the best part of the cannabis.
Yeah, to eliminate the plant matter that would otherwise be somewhat harmful, perhaps, to ingest.
If you need to ingest that much THC content, that's a lot of flour you're going to be eating every day.
This is dealing with Health Canada. They're the same people that in the beginning said that medical cannabis users couldn't make extracts, that you had to only use the dry buds. And Chris Backer in Halifax, who now runs the East Coast Cannabis Substitution Program there, he challenged him on that by making extracts, making topicals, because he was a burn victim, and his house caught fire. And he had pets inside the house that were family members as far as he was concerned, and he went in and got them. And he burned himself badly in the process. And so he had bad burns on his arms. Well, on one arm, he would use the topicals that he was making, by extracting the solvents, the cannabis. And on the other, he would take the dried bud, and he would just rub the dried bud on his burns. You can imagine, so he won his point. And so people can now use topicals, and they can use extracts, and that became part. But Health Canada was idiotic enough to say exactly that. You can have alcohol, and you can have weed, but you can't run the alcohol through the weed and eliminate the plant matter so you can get a topical that would be okay to use. No, you can't do that. Now,
But you can do it with almost any other natural herb or plant to extract vitamins or nutrients. You use different solvents and stuff like that to get what you need.
And then, it's just excuse after excuse. This is all just to protect big corporate money interests that want to sell you their stuff, that have patents on different formulations. They don't want cannabis in the marketplace unless they could control it themselves. And so this is just the lies and the excuses that they put up to try to accommodate that. By saying that cannabis is dangerous, that we have to keep it out of the hands of children, that there's microbes on cannabis that have to be killed.
I know autistic children that my daughter went to a school with that had a special nurse that came in and issued his cannabis oil to him at school. And it helped.
Oh man, kids with epilepsy and all the rest of it. The science is really easy. It's there. I'm not a scientist or a doctor, but I've seen enough, and I've witnessed, and I've learned enough about how the endocannabinoid system utilizes the cannabinoids and how they bind to the receptors, and how this is something that happens within the human body with or without cannabis. Is that the exact duplicates of cannabinoids, and anandamide, and other bodily produced chemicals that are the cannabinoids, that they named the endocannabinoid system for interior, is what goes and addresses all of these health issues. This is medicine, and there's no way around it. So now we know all of this, instead of thinking like back when we were all not so sophisticated of people, and there was some crazy drug that was putting demons in people, and it was the devil's weed, and people would go violent and insane and crazy, and oh my God, the government needs to protect us from that shit, and anybody that's got it, bring the heaviest hammer of the law down on them, and that would be the criminal law, and that's what we're still doing, even though here we are all these decades later. Well, we know it doesn't induce violence, it suppresses violence, it's a medicine, it's a supplement to your endocannabinoid system, It helps kids. There's no magical age where all of a sudden now your body can tolerate cannabinoids, and prior to that, it would be really harmful for you and harm your development. There's no age like that at all. Cannabinoids are a vital component of mother's milk in breastfeeding. It's part of the development of the fetus and the entire child from insemination to adulthood, and cannabinoids are a big part of all of that. So, this is all so stupid, so wrong, but the money is so big that they're willing to continue to tell obvious lies and be this corrupt.
Well, we know it was healthy. Prior to 1938, it was all high CBD hemp was fed to all our cattle and livestock.
Yeah.
If you look back, you find pictures of cannabis oil. And you look at the purity, which is way stronger than the government will allow it now, and it was in children's cough syrup.
Yeah, it was all kinds of medications all the way through.
Right, but now it's illegal.
Drugstores used to have another word in front of them. Botanical.
Yes.
Is what they were. They were botanical drugstores, and they were around too, and they were all based on herbs and natural medicine. Well, and then the Rockefellers, in a partnership with a drug company in Germany, they decided to take over the whole thing. They commissioned a study by Mr. Flexner, who said that herbal medicine was voodoo medicine, that there was no standardized dosages, that modern medicine was able to isolate the compounds, synthesize them. Doctors in white gowns would be trained by universities to be able to give you exactly what you want and exactly the right dose, and thereby demonizing the botanical drugstores and the herbal medicines. And prior to that, all the schools for medicine were about herbs, and they all the funding dried right up when those reports came out. Rockefeller flexing their muscles through the media and through the universities.
I remember one of the old school ads, and it was this guy in his bedroom with his wife, and they're both naked, turned away from the camera, and he's got a tuba facing her bum, and it said, "Cannabis will make you do this." Just like...
Yeah, we talked on the show a couple weeks ago. There was a guy that gave testimony in court that it turned him into a bat. And, there was lots of talk about it in the 60s about how it would grow breasts on men. And it would no longer be fertile.
That's because back in the day they used to put birth control pills in their water to feed their plants. So maybe that's a possibility. But other than that, I don't really see it happening.
No, and then studies from Jamaica that showed that there wasn't a lack of fertility and there wasn't problems with the birth rates or with the deformities or anything like that. And then, of course, similar studies in Canada, where the usage is right up there. It's in Jamaica with the same thing. All lies, and they continue to grasp at straws.
And manipulation.
And all because this plant is so valuable. And greedy people don't give a shit that you're sick and you might need it to cure your cancer or, whatever you might need it for. They don't give a shit.
If it's so bad for us, why does the government want to monopolize on it?
Here they are now selling it.
Yeah, they've been locking
Here
people
they have
up.
been,
I'm still looking at jail time. I'm not sure what, Jerry's probably looking at a conviction too.
I think they've taken jail time off the table for Jerry.
Okay.
Which was really good because it was certainly hanging over his head for a lot of those 4.5 years. They were going to put him in a cage for that.
And there's still people in the cages right now for it.
Certainly there are.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah, one day maybe it'll stop there, and maybe your case will have something to do with it. Certainly your activism has already done a lot over the years. Like I say, the help that you gave the Cannabis Substitution Program was invaluable. In many ways, you helped us with donations, with setting up the dab bar.
Yeah, set it up at the old venue there.
Promoting us on the BC Bud Guys show that you had. Lots of things you did for us that'll help, hopefully get low barrier access down the road before too long. And lots of other things. Is there things in the future you got going, or are you just focused on the court case at this time?
Right now, just focus on the court case and family. Like I said, my wife was gone for a year. Glad to have her back. The family's all back together, doing good. But still, building back up, getting the farm back together.
Very cool. Well, all the best on the 22nd. I hope if you're out in Abbotsford, can you go to the courthouse?
Apparently for a trial, you go to court.
They've now listed
lifted the COVID restrictions and people can go to courthouses as well as.
Oh, out there, you go to
Thank
the
God.
gas station, nobody's wearing a mask.
Boy, that was quite the crowd in Montreal last night. I don't know if you saw that.
No.
Montreal finally won a game in the final. Thank goodness.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And there was a huge crowd of people outside of the forum watching the game. Like they haven't seen since before COVID. You know?
Yeah.
Just like packed in like sardines, all jumping up and down, yelling and screaming. Half of them not wearing shirts. And yeah. So yeah, hopefully that's okay to do that now again.
Hopefully things don't become a new norm and they go back to the old norm.
Or there becomes some new vaccine-resistant variant or whatever the next thing could be here. I don't know.
That's what our immune system's for.
Well,
Build it up, keep it strong, be healthy.
Stranger times maybe down the road. I hope for sanity. One day maybe we'll get it. And yeah, thank you so much for coming and talking to us about all this stuff. I wish you all the best on the 22nd. We'll see what happens.
Yeah,
Fingers
definitely
crossed. Maybe the truth wins out here. If not, of course, we'll use it to once again continue to expose just how corrupt things are. This is the criminal courts we're talking about. This is serious jail time that's on the table here. And for hundreds of years, we as people tried to find justice, to get mechanisms for finding justice. And, you needed a victim to be involved. You needed to have intent that you were going to hurt somebody.
For a crime.
For it to be a crime, you needed to have done significant damage. You needed to have the victim of the damage in court to be able to face you in court. It's your right as an accused. You're supposed to be innocent until proven guilty. In proving you guilty, they have to prove that you understood the consequences of the impending actions, that damage was going to happen, and yet you continued to do it. That understanding is called mens rea. The action that caused the damage is actus rea. Those two things were the absolute key components to what hundreds of years of trying to determine justice had come to be. That you needed to have intended to do significant damage that you actually did. And they need to prove you did the damage, they need to prove that it was you that did it, they need to prove that you had the intent and the knowledge to do it. And then a balance, once they prove how much damage was done, the balancing of the scales with a penalty that matches that. And yet, we've been hornswoggled here, and the hemp's been pulled over our eyes to blind us to how this ever was ever accepted as a way to be, where a person can be found growing plants, natural plants, a natural human being on his own home planet, in his own garden, growing plants, and somehow that becomes a crime. Or having the plants from the dried flower tops from the plants in a bag in your pocket or in your car or in your basement, or selling it to somebody because somebody says, I love those plants, I know those plants, those plants will help me, I need help, you can help me, I got some money, how much do you want, blah, blah, blah. But what humans do,
It's called trade.
it's no role of government involved in any of that unless somebody's being harmed in some way, unless there's a potential for harm. And there's none with cannabis. So this is so wrong that we would allow this to happen. We would allow for governments to criminalize an activity that has no basis in actual crime, to allow our police to be put in charge of enforcing these laws that everybody hates, causing us to hate the police, causing us to not trust the police.
Causing you to actually have to sell out of a van.
That too.
Not selling your, work out of a van and not in a safer environment.
And guaranteeing that there's going to be criminal organizations that use violence to settle their issues because they can't do it through the courts. It's a guarantee of this prohibition system, and all of this stuff is still going on. And the only reason it continues in the face of all of this evidence that we've just, with what you and I have just talked about here in the last 5 minutes, should be enough for any reasoned adjudicator to do a little bit of due diligence and realize that we're telling the truth.
Yeah.
And there's no justification for the criminal law to be used in preventing access. In fact, why would any public servant prevent access to what is medicine for people and helping people with the primary needs of life, like sleep and health and a relief from pain and those things, that none of these laws make any sense whatsoever. In fact, it's also clear that the only reason they're in effect is to protect the interests of
people wanting to make money off of this situation. That's corruption in a nutshell. Any judge would figure that out in a heartbeat if they're worth anything. And yet here we are continuing on because the money is so big. The power is so great that they can continue to do this in the face of what is obviously a horrible, horrible crime being committed against us through this corrupt system.
It's absurd.
It's absurd. It's ludicrous. It's
what they're doing
outrageous.
should be illegal.
Oh, absolutely, it is. Without even there being any laws on the books, you have a natural right as a human being not to be bullied, to be allowed to do whatever you want to do. If you're not hurting nobody else, it is nobody's business but yours. What you do.
Exactly. If there's no victim, you're not hurting anybody. You're not, destroying.
It's
things.
not the right of anybody to
Right.
come and interfere with you. It doesn't matter what they've granted themselves, what they've been granted by others. It doesn't matter how many other people support them. It doesn't matter what type of uniform they have or badge they carry or hat that they wear. None of that gives anybody the right to interfere in any way with any individual human being who's not harming anybody else. And that's just the natural right. So, we've been kidnapped. Our rights have been stripped from us. We live in a world where we are oppressed by the very people that we pay to protect us from oppression. And that's why I do the show. And that's why you're here to talk about it. And that's why you're facing jail time for trying to extract medicine from one of the most medicinal plants on the planet. For that,
to give people a better quality of life.
For that, you deserve to be punished for some reason. Like, holy shit. You deserve an award. And that's what I've said all along. These dispensary owners, these cannabis producers that produce in the face of losing their liberty and their property are true heroes. And, we're here only because of you guys. And yet you're being punished by our own public servants for doing what everybody else thinks is heroic. Certainly the people that attend our RV to access what is medicine for them are so grateful for what you're doing and being able to access that. There is no victim. Not only is there no victim, there are so many people that are so grateful. People that are sick, people that are poor, people that are suffering. Mm-hmm. These people are grateful for what's being done, and yet you're being punished for it. It's just the most ludicrous thing in the world. It really is. I just can't wrap my brain around it. Can't do anything else but have a show to talk about it. To live most moments of my life trying to do something about it. It's just because I can't stand insanity. I don't like living in an unreasonable world. I don't.
And that's why it's our civil right and duty to do a civil act of disobedience against an unjust law to have that law changed.
I agree.
As Canadian citizens, it's not unfair that people can't make this medicine for themselves or make it to give to thy neighbor, help thy neighbor.
It's unethical.
Right?
It's unethical. My parents were right-wing Christians. They were wrong about a lot of things, in my opinion, but they believed what they believed. Mm-hmm. And I spent my childhood growing up where we freely, my mom was a quiet little thing, she didn't say much, but my dad was a debater. My brothers and myself, we loved debating, and we did it every night at the dinner table, and we had lots to debate about, with mom and dad's belief in creation and a God and Adam and Eve and the devil and all of this stuff. And my brothers and I really not buying into most of that. I did for a short time. I found religion through an evangelical meeting one night, and for the better part of a year or more, I carried my Bible to school and was ridiculed by my fellow students until I had a real breakthrough one day, and I really thought about the whole story of creationalism and this all-knowing, all-eternal God who in the beginning was all there was, who created everything that is, and from that creation came a devil, came evil, came human beings that you have trouble telling one from the other when the devil presents himself as a sophisticated, truth teller, and who knows who's telling the truth.
Sophisticated prime minister.
So all of that, I smoked some cannabis and thought about it, and I can remember what I was wearing and where I was exactly on Bluebird Crescent, coming around the corner there on my way to the school bus, and it just hit me. My parents are wrong. They're wrong. They don't know they're wrong. They're not lying to me on purpose. But this can't be true. This cannot be true. That an all-knowing God would create all of this and then decide at some point that the humans that he created, that he put into this garden that had everything that they could ever want and need, and only one thing that they couldn't have. And that would be the thing that they would want to have, of course, because that's what brand new humans do. They want what they can't have. Any god should have known that. Anyway, they're convinced by the sophisticated devil, dressed up to be a walking, talking serpent, one of the more grandiose animals in the garden, and, and convinced Eve that, of course God's just testing you. He wants you to try that fruit there. It's the fruit of the knowledge of good and evil. And of course he would want you to have that. He talked her into it. He was an eternal, a being, that was in charge of all the angels at one point. I mean, this is a sophisticated dude. And this is a brand new human being, hasn't even had a baby yet. And he talks her into the fruit. Of course he talks her into the fruit. That was one of the easier cons of his fucking life. So that she eats the fruit, now she's got the knowledge of good and evil, now she's ashamed of her body. She convinces Adam to have some too, because you know how women can convince men to do whatever they want them to do, happy wife, right? So, Adam goes along with it, whatever. And now what are the consequences? God said they would surely die if they ate that, for one thing. Well, they lived for several hundred years. They fostered numerous generations of children along the way. They were kicked out of the garden. They were ashamed of their nakedness, even though they were supposedly created in the image of God. So they're created in the image of God, and eating of the fruit of the knowledge of good and evil makes them ashamed of their nakedness. And then they're kicked out of the garden. They procreate, incest, generations of people. God, once again, looks upon his creation. This is an all-knowing God, by the way. See, I was told omniscient, all-knowing, omnipresent, all these things, omnipotent, all-powerful. And so here this all-knowing, all-powerful God creates this thing that what, gets out of control on him? Like he doesn't know the outcome? Because he's supposed to know past, present, and future and everything. Yeah. So, so it gets away on him with the whole Adam and Eve thing and the fruit, and then they procreate and create all these other humans, and then that gets away on God again, and God goes, hey, this isn't working, not quite what I planned. Well, that's what he should have given. He should have flooded the world with cannabis plants. That would have solved the issue. But instead, he decided to flood the world and kill everything but the birds and the fish. Some of the birds get to live. There'd be lots of trees floating around. I'm sure the birds get to live. Birds and fish, everything else gets to die, except for one righteous family. He found one righteous family, convinces him to build a big boat, draws 2 of every species of animals on the planet, which is really crazy because there's like 250,000 non-interbreeding species of beetles alone, and it goes on from there, right? Like there's a lot, and there's a lot of other things that don't make sense with that art. My point is none of this makes any sense. That was what was happening to me walking down that street. I thought all of this stuff within a few moments. I went through that whole little scenario, and then God decides to correct it again by killing everything except the righteous family. And then the righteous family, incest like crazy, hundreds of years, generations later, it's gone awry on him again. He's going to find something else, other way to fix it. Flooding it all out didn't work. So now he's going to pick a third of himself, he's a trinity of people, all in one, and he's going to send what is considered to be like his son, which kind of is weird if you're an eternal being, but there's a whole bunch of weirdness, right? And then the son's going to come down and pretend to die for 3 days, and then go back up to heaven forever. And anybody who believes that he did that gets to go to heaven, and anybody who doesn't believe that he did that, they're going to hell, even if they were really good people. And so I think about all this in that few brief minute or two walking around down the street, and it just hits me. They're wrong. That can't be true. This is not the truth. That can't be right. And so that was it. That's what happens to the mustache tokers. I love these things. See how the tip is broken off there? It used to have a longer stem on it. Gibson glass is where you can get these. I recommend them. Glass breaks. That's why it's kind of treasured while you have it. It's before it breaks. It's really, really nice. I still keep using it after it breaks because I don't have any more that aren't broken, and they still work really good. But anyway. Well, thanks, Darren. We even talked about religion. That's awesome.
Oh, yeah.
God does not want man to stamp out what was one of his better plants. It's arguable that the tree of life in the garden there that had the 12 different fruits that were for all these different things, it's quite arguable that cannabis could have easily been the tree of life, as its use as a fiber and as a medicine, as a food, and as a fabric, and so many other things that it can be used for. Yeah. And like I say, knowing anything about plants and the value of plants, God would not have wanted one of his plants to be annihilated on his behalf by man. If God wanted to do that, he'd just make it go extinct himself, don't you think? Yep. If there was a God doing all those kind of things. And, I'm glad there's not. I'm not saying there's not a God, who knows? But there's not a God doing all those things. There's not a God that did all of that stuff. There's not a God that wants you to be unhappy in your life. I read a thing from Spinoza, his opinion of what God would say to people that want to praise him and they're afraid of him and all of that stuff. And I'm like, no, live your life. Be happy. I created you. I want you to enjoy yourself. I want you to learn while you're down here. And, when you at the end of it, I'm going to ask you, did you have fun? And what did you learn? And I'd like to throw in there, and did you help people? Yeah.
Did you do good?
Yeah. But not he says, what kind of a God would I be if I burned my children forever in eternity because they disobeyed me? He says, what kind of a God would that be? And as for being praised all the time, he says, come on, get over it. I'm sick of being praised all the time. Just live a good life. That's how you praise me. Yeah. Respect the nature that I created for you. But stop telling me that, I'm sick of people being grateful, he said. And it was so well written, and it really did speak to probably what the truths of an enlightened being would be. And there may well be a God that started this universe, or maybe started the 10 or 20 or infinity universes that were before this one came into being and will come after this one. I have no idea about any of this stuff. That's too big for me. I don't know. All I know is I'm here. I feel lucky, and I think I'm lucky that I feel lucky. I want to do as much as I can to feel good, and that means having fun and helping people, because that's the most fun you can have, is helping people. That was me as a kid. I should let you go, but as a kid, I don't know how you played, but and this is depicted in a lot of movies. There's a bully. One of your toys is a bully, and the bully's beating up the other guy, and the other guy's a nice guy, and you're going to come along and you're going to save the nice guy from the bully. Movies are all about this all the time. They come up with a character that you can't stand. He did horrible things. You hate that guy. And then there's the hero. And then there's the fight between the two, and the hero wins. And that's how I played. That's how I wanted to be. And so I think that the corporate elite that think they own everybody and don't give a shit about nobody, I think they're bullies. I don't like them at all for what they do and how they hurt people and for what they take out of this planet and how they don't care about this planet. And so I'm having fun just kind of sticking it to them a little bit, And so enjoy your life, and I recommend you try to do it by, sticking it to the bullies and helping out the innocent people and doing as much good as you can. If you're lucky enough to be in that position, you could be one of the three. You never know where you're born, right? Yeah. You could be born to be a pharmaceutical giant because that's just how you are. Your family, your education, your life's path took you there, and you could be one of those people, or you could be the victim of the corporate elite, and somebody who's really suffering because their policies interfering with government trying to protect people means that a lot of people get cast to the wayside, and we see it out here. People that just got lost in the system, they couldn't afford a lawyer. What they did get wasn't enough to get them off the charges that they had. They lost their job, then they lost their housing, and now they lost their confidence in themselves. They lose faith in humanity. They end up down here hopeless, just trying to snort enough fucking heroin to not think for another 30 minutes until all they can think about is getting some more, because they don't want to think about how bad things have been for them, So,
the turmoil they've been through.
Yeah. So, and you could be that person, or you could be the person that's lucky enough to know how to extract cannabinoids and to help it get to people, or to provide access to go, or to deal with justice issues, or to be good social workers. There's so many ways that you can help. And you can be any one of those three people in your life. You can be the bully, you can be the victim, or you can be the one that's trying to help. And, if you're the one that's trying to help, and you're in a position where you've got skills or resources or information or ability, then you're a very lucky person. And, that's the best position to be. And a lot of people can take that. They can decide to be that. A lot of times victims decide that. If they're sick of being victims, now they're going to give back. Now they're going to help. Now they're going to help other people that were in their position. Yeah. And people that were bullies, lots of times, they decide they don't like what they were doing. They don't like that. They reject that. Yeah. And so, so you can change, and we can all be that lucky person that builds the resources and the skills necessary to be able to be the one that gets to help. And that's the best position to be. The other thing I was going to say about sitting around the table there talking ethics all the time, that shaped me into who I am. Our family, my dad and my two brothers and I, we rolled around ethics every night. What's ethical? What's ethical? What's ethical? And I remember when I had quit my job and I was doing the first Freedom Tour, inline skating up the Malahat mountain range on Vancouver Island, headed for Ottawa. And my mom called me, and she said, "What are you doing?" I was a skilled carpenter. I was a skilled restoration expert, actually. We were in the lead up to the Olympics here in Vancouver, and there was carpenter wars going on, where skilled carpenters and tradespeople and supervisors were being stolen from company to company by offering. And I was in line for, I thought 2 or 3 companies steal me off the other guy, and I'm making a fortune before the Olympics get here. Yeah. But my life flowed differently than that, and it was because of the ethics that I developed, growing up in that environment. That what I said to my mom when she said, "Why are you doing this? You have a good career, you have all these skills, and now you're throwing that all away, and you're just going to do what? Spend the next 5 months trying to inline skate to Ottawa for what?" I said, because I was instilled through your raising of me to do the right thing, and this is the right thing for me to do, and I don't have a choice about it. When I was presented with the information, there was no choice in the decision that I had to make. I had to do whatever I could to try to solve it, and that's led me to here. So when ethics win out, I think we'll be all right, and that's why I'm kind of optimistic that eventually that happens. It's a long, long process, and the powers against us are huge. But maybe in the end, and we're in a world where we could maybe accomplish that with so much ability to interact with each other. The communication that we have.
Enough people stand up and start arguing against these bad decisions that the governments are making for us.
That's right. If enough people decide to do the right thing.
If
enough of you people decide.
Right? Like civilly, don't need to be violent or anything, but enough people need to wake up and
I'm not an advocate of violent revolution.
Bills through, yes, Bill C-10 didn't go through, but they're still trying to get Bill C-36 through. That's the one where somebody's offended by something you say online. You don't even get to meet your accuser. They can still come after you for
there's lots of bad stuff that's potential in there.
Like,
we all need to be as aware as we can and do what we can and feel good doing it. That's all. Don't let it get you. Let it get you to a point where you're going to do something, and then once you start doing something, then you feel good about it. And we'll all support everybody in doing that, and being active in our own, in the next generation's future becomes a cool thing to do. Instead of just using all the resources we have up before they get here. I think that can happen. I'm optimistic. Thanks, Darren. Appreciate it so much.
Thank you very much.
We'll see you again soon, I'm sure. And we'll keep track of what happens before the 22nd and what happens on the 22nd.
Yes, we'll keep you posted.
All right. Thank you so much. Are we having fun yet? If not, we're at the segment of the show where we go and check in with the crew outside and talk a little bit about where we are with our struggle for the low barrier access community cannabis shops. We're really not much farther ahead of where we were last week, except that we're obviously a week closer to whatever that ultimate outcome is going to be. And, it's going to happen one of these days somehow. It can't keep going on forever. It's getting really silly now that we've been out in the RV for 8 months. And I'll just recap a little bit of what I'm talking about. Because of our experience, myself, my son, David Malmo-Levine, in opening a cannabis dispensary with low barrier access with respect to medical requirements about a block from here at Main and Hastings, learned that cannabis can be effective, especially with the high dose edibles, in getting people through withdrawal and off of opioids and other street drugs. That information became very valuable back in 2004 when the opioid crisis hit and there was a poisoning of the drug supply. People were dying, and I had this experience of understanding that cannabis high-dose edibles could be effective in getting people off those drugs. So I went and got the unanimous support of Vandu to have their backing in going to City Hall and asking for their support in setting up a program where we would make it as easy as possible for people to get high-dose cannabis edibles here on the downtown east side, those people that are facing barriers of poverty and other access. And so not getting the support of council, but deciding to continue to do what the right thing to do was, which was to do that. With Vandu's permission, we used their facilities for 3.5 years and provided high-dose edibles to long lineups of people in the form of care packs. Studies were done on our program and other aspects of cannabis as a substitution and replacement for opioids, much of it by Dr. M.J. Malloy. Much of his work was accepted by the City of Vancouver, who then passed a motion unanimously to also support access to cannabis for the opioid crisis in low barrier access mode, which means that you can't have people need ID, you can't restrict the dosages, you can't have expensive packaging, you can't have taxation that would increase the price, you can't have prices that are going to eliminate people that don't have resources. You must have no cost and low cost cannabis in all of its forms to meet the needs of the community properly. And so the city passed a motion unanimously saying that they would support that. In good faith, and having met with the city, we opened a storefront about a year later, and that was a year ago, and that was this space here. And after 4.5 months, we were evicted because the City of Vancouver would not give us a license until we got Ottawa to approve what we were doing. And we did right away send in a real comprehensive application to Ottawa, which is yet to be decided upon over almost 10 months. The 16th, it'll be 10 months since we put that in there. We also applied with an emergency application to the Health Ministry to give us a temporary exemption from the Cannabis Act to allow us to continue the service that we've been providing. And even though they said they would try to get that for us in a timely manner, 3 months later they were apologizing for taking so long. 3 months after that, they were asking us to just be patient. And here we are, being somewhat patient, but also a little bit frustrated. It's incomprehensible that we can be forced to do what we're doing, which is we moved out of the store that we were evicted from. We moved into an RV. We've been here 6 days a week, 8 hours a day, now in the RV for over 8 months, and providing the service that we're providing, just like we should be able to do from the store. But we continue to wait, and we continue to lobby, and we continue to ask people to lobby on our behalf. You can write letters and communicate with Health Canada or Patty Haydu, the federal health minister, or your local politicians, or the police, or the media, or anybody that you think might be able to help push the issue forward so that communities everywhere in Canada can have a low barrier access community cannabis shop to facilitate the needs of people struggling with medical issues and struggling with addiction. So let's go out and see what's going on outside. I don't need that. Here we have Jerry Martin in his newly wrapped Microdelics car. Hey, Jerry. That looks awesome, man. That looks super. Is it all pimped out inside? You got some psychedelic lights.
My seats should be in today. I got Dancing Bear LSD seat covers.
Nice. Yeah, you'll have to have some psychedelic music coming on. You have some lighting going on.
I got some lighting, but I think it's illegal. Yeah, I've already got it for all the floors, changes colors, and
nice. Well, that's awesome. That's good. Well, all the best. But you can't help but succeed now.
Yeah, I'm hoping so.
You got this thing. You can't help but succeed. Yeah. And I'm sure people all over are going to be, going to the web to see what MindTech, .ca is. Yeah, for sure. They're going to see the car and go, what the heck is that? Let's figure that out. So, good on you. Yeah. All right. Carry on.
Okay.
Talk to you soon. Thanks again. So this is the home of the West Coast version of the Cannabis Substitution Program. Like I said, when we were forced out of the store, we got an RV right that same night. We never missed a single day. And we've been here for 8 months. And I say the West Coast Cannabis Substitution Program because it's also on the East Coast. Chris Backer and his volunteers and his donators back in Halifax have been providing cannabis for over 1.5 years now to their community there with great success, and so thrilled about all that. And Chris, I don't know if you're watching. I know you're not feeling good, my friend, and I hope you take care of yourself, and I hope you're okay for next week. It looks like you did your program every Monday. They do their program where they hand out care packs to a lineup of people, and Chris was posting that he's not well at all the next day. So I really hope you feel better. Take it easy. I hope there's some volunteers that can help and take over and make it work and all of that stuff. All the best, Chris. Feel better, buddy. I love you. And thank you so much for what you're doing back there. And also in London, Ontario, there's another chapter of the Cannabis Substitution Program there. Mary McCarty and her volunteers and donators, they've just started. I think this is probably their 11th week. They do it on Tuesdays, so they did it today. They had another big lineup of people. There was no, she did have some police there last week telling her that what she was doing was illegal, but there was no interference today. There was an incident where somebody OD'd across the street from where they were doing their program, and that's very sad to see, but it certainly does highlight the issue of why Mary's there doing that, is that people are ODing in the streets. We have people that are dying right across Canada, right across North America, and what we need is a proper solution. What we need to have is cannabis as an option. It needs to be available to people, easy access to cannabis, especially high-dose edibles. Will save lives, will help people get off of the opioids, and we've proven that here with our program. Let's see if we can go around the back and talk to Andrew. That's the secret knock, in case you don't know.
We have a secret.
Hello, what do we have?
Any knock you knock is the
Any knock is the secret knock here. It's a low barrier access. You don't really have to know the secret knock. You know, any knock will do. But if you knock on the back door and you're a member of the program, you can access cannabis edibles. We give out 420 milligrams every 4 days to over 260 people, and we're increasing that as we go. 66 now.
I got 250 people that are on the waiting list.
Yeah, so there's still people on a waiting list. There's still more people we can help. But we don't turn anybody away. If they're not part of the program and they need a high-dose edible, they get that from the side window, and we give that out free. Everybody gets a free joint, a free edible if they need it, and we do a lot of that. So Andrew here's been running the program for all the time we've been in the RV and the store. He was also in charge of the volunteers at Van Du while we were there. And now what we do is we don't have care packs. We have a tray full of edibles, and people get to choose what they want, like I say, 420 milligrams. So what do you got today, Andrew?
I have lots today to choose from. I got some stars over here that are 100 milligrams each, cookies.
Nice.
Right? I got some brownies over here that are 80 milligrams. I got some gummies over here. They're 80 milligrams each. They're 10 milligrams each.
Those are the Gorilla Ganja. Where do the stars come from?
Stars came, Joe Pepper.
Joe Pepper, nice.
Yeah.
And the brownies, that's Roberta?
Yes.
Nice.
And we have some chocolate over here.
Caramels from Robert?
Yeah, we have caramels, 150 milligram caramels from Robert.
Right.
And we have some gummies here. They're 30 milligrams each.
Right.
And we have cubes here. The cubes are 50 milligrams each. 2 in a package makes 100.
That's from our anonymous donator.
And we have these gummies over here, 80 milligrams each.
Gorilla Ganja.
We have 1-to-1 black cherry. That's 40% indica and 40% CBD. Same with the mango. Mango's a sativa, but it's 1-to-1.
No, they're 40 milligrams. They're not 40%.
40 milligrams each.
50%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Half and half.
50-50, and they're 80 milligram total.
Yeah, I have sativa, pure pineapple. The pineapple is pure CBD. I have a pure THC raspberry, and I have a 1-to-1 black cherry.
Nice.
I have some chocolate in the quart. It's 100 milligrams each.
And you've got one of the best jobs of all, because you get to deal with the people that get it for free, and they're pretty grateful, aren't they?
Yeah, they love it.
Yeah.
But I deal with all kinds of people all day, and all kinds of conditions come up to me.
But a lot of people really do appreciate what we're doing.
Sure they do. It's the best way to get off with the drugs you're on.
And a lot of people tell us just how much it's helped them. And
Oh, they have all kinds of stories how it's helping them right now. They have all kinds.
Good. Well,
Right?
thanks.
A lot of people mostly need around here is sleep.
Yeah, exactly.
So the edibles help you get them from sleep and rest. That's what
We
they
provide sleep for people.
need. Because you don't know, these people are running around all day. You don't have, it doesn't matter
And
who
they
you
can't
are.
think straight because they're sleep
No.
deprived in a lot of cases.
Yeah, you people are walking around with a lot of pain, people walk around high, people walk around addicted, but they're walking around all day and then they go home at the end of the day, right? And they're all tired, right?
And they don't sleep because it's too hot where they are, or there's bugs where they are, or there's people making noise all the time where they are, or they don't have a place to sleep at all. You know, and so sleep is such an important thing, and it is. And with what we're providing here, the indicas, and you know, it really does help people sleep. So. Great job, Andrew.
Okay, thanks.
We'll see you on the round side.
Cheers.
Thank you very much.
Oh, look at that, just in time. What do we have here? Have ice cream, please? Hot dog, maybe? No?
I don't have any meat here, sir.
Ice cream is not meat.
No, I
Ice
just
cream
said a
is
hot
good.
dog.
So are you cool enough in there?
Yeah, we got
Feels all right.
It was warm today, but not the hottest.
We went through Monday, you know, that's a 1 in 1,000 year event. So, well, we weren't here Monday. We're here Tuesday. That was, and it was so hot. Yeah.
First thing I do when I get
Okay,
in
we're
here is
coming
open
in.
the windows.
Nice. 8 months and you people haven't killed each other yet. That's pretty good.
We enjoy it.
Well, you know, NASA does experiments on people that are held in tight quarters together for long periods of time, and it usually doesn't end well. And it doesn't take that long before it starts to go badly. Yeah, they're not smoking enough weed. Exactly. If in fact we should probably tell NASA that we're running their experiment with weed and having great success.
Nobody's killed anybody.
No, we do, however, throw things at each other on a regular basis. And you know, but no damage ever done. Nobody's lost an eye yet. And we just sit out here and help people all day long, and it's very rewarding, although it's very frustrating. We talk daily about governments and why you know, they would be so worried about making money for a bunch of rich people instead of helping the poor people that really need it. We all recognize the corruption that's going on in government to result in this situation here. So that's going on, but we're keeping on, and one of these days maybe. Remember how a long time ago I had that campaign where every day I would write something about something and then say, maybe today will be the day that we'll get permission. You know, that was a long time ago.
What exactly made you decide to stop?
I don't know.
You finally realized, well, today ain't gonna be the fucking day.
I had covered most of the ground. You know, every day another post about some aspect of what's not right, and you know, I didn't want to repeat myself, and it had just gotten so crazy. You know, and all of this is us exposing, you know, how corrupt it is, how crazy it is, and so it's another day of being in the RV. We've been here for 8 months plus in the RV, over a year since we opened the store. Still can't get permission from any level of government. If we had support from any level of government, we could be back in the store, we could be expanding our services, we could be providing a path for others to follow to be able to help their neighborhoods. But here we are.
Well, you know, it's funny, I saw a thing on Facebook today, an article about researchers that were testing the effects of meth on fish. So there's money for that. There's money to, you know, research that, but, you know.
There's money for anything that they can potentially make money on. That's how that works. Investors
and
will.
apparently fish can get addicted to meth and go through withdrawal, just like people.
Wow.
Yep.
Wow.
Yep.
If they come down and see
Fish
Apparently they're getting high on it in the water from people's waste. So,
I heard there was a fair amount of cocaine in the water off of San Francisco or something like that. Because they flush a lot of stuff out into the bay there. I have no idea. Just rumors. You can't believe anything you hear.
Well, people like to destroy the planet. You know, that's what we're gonna.
Some people. Some people. It's important to qualify it. Some people.
I know, but you
The
know what I
accuracy
mean.
of language will save us in
You
the
know
end.
what I mean, though.
Yes. But does everybody know what you mean?
You're saving lives right here.
Anyway.
There's plenty of people trying to save the planet.
It's been fun. You know, another show in the books here. Thank you for watching the show. I got to thank, you know, all the people that have helped us. I want to thank Chris in Halifax and Mary in London and all the other people that are doing good things for us. I should mention that we have hoodies available. I don't think we have one here to show you,
It's
but
hot in here,
because it's a little warm. They're going to be great in the fall for sure. But we do have hoodies available, $25 minimum donation, and you can have a really good quality hoodie that supports the Cannabis Substitution Program. All the money goes to the Cannabis Substitution Program. Nobody's making anything on the hoodie thing. You get a nice crest on there, and you can show your support. Get a hold of myself or John Murray for that. You can check us out on the Cannabis Substitution Project page on Facebook. You can check out Jen Nelson's daily blog, which gets posted there every day. And yeah, you know, we're soldiering on despite tough circumstances. That's been the nature of life on Earth for a very long time. It's made us as strong as we are and as smart as we are, and we won't stop until we get to our ultimate goal, which is freedom and love for everybody and nobody left behind. And that's what we're working towards. This project is part of that. We're all one world here, we're all one heart, and we hope that we can achieve this. We're all crew, there's no passengers. Everybody understands that we're working for a better next generation's future, and that you can help too, and that's the best way to live your life, is to find your niche and find where you can help out and keep a balance in your life. And part of that balance is giving back and helping the world be a better place than it was when you got here. So do your thing, find your niche, write letters, make phone calls, talk to people, make signs, have a show, who knows, ton of different ways that you can do it. But I recommend you do it. It'd be great if we all did it. If we all did it, maybe we could rise above this this oppression that we've been under for so long, where we are obviously so controlled and manipulated that they can restrict access to sick people to a natural medicine that could enrich their lives and save their lives. That's how bad the state of affairs still are in this world. Even though we've come a long way to get to where we are, we have a lot farther to get yet, and I hope that you'll all help us. And in the pursuit of that, I hope that you'll be kind to each other, be kind to yourself, forgive everybody, forgive yourself, and go about your life having as much fun as you can. We'll see you next week.